Hi, I'm Frank Turner, and you are lucky enough to be watching May the Rock Be With You.
G'day, Frank. How are you, mate?
It's the start of my day, but otherwise, it's starting well. So, how are you?
Good. Well, how was your night then? Good? Yeah.
My night was. What did I do last night? I was in the studio till quite late last night, working on
Oh,
some mixes of. I produce for other people as well, so I'm mixing a friend of mine's record right now, and. There's that moment in all forms of creativity, I'm sure, where you stop and just kind of go, I have no idea if this is good right now. I need to go to bed.
amazing.
So I had one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, here we are. Now, we have spoken a couple of times before, but the last time we spoke was just over 10 years ago. So let's catch up.
No,
How's the last
really?
10 years been for you? Yeah.
Fucking hell. The last 10 years have been great. Thank you very much. I've been quite busy. I mean, if you gave me 2 minutes, I could Google how many shows I've done in that time, but I'm sure that would come across as bravado to a degree. I've put out a bunch of records, and I have, what else have I done? I've moved out of London and I got married. So it's been an eventful time. How's your last decade been?
Well, no one's ever asked me. That's great. Good, bad, indifferent. There we go. It's all the things.
That was a more succinct answer than mine.
Yeah, nice. Now, of course, we are here, though. You're headed back to Australia this November. Now, a Frank
Yes.
Turner show is always a party. For someone that has never had the pleasure of seeing you perform live, what can people expect at these upcoming shows?
Well, I mean, when I get asked this question, there was a part of me that's tempted to be slightly kind of snarky and be like, it's going to be me playing some songs on stage. But let's engage with the spirit of the question. I'm bringing my band with me. We've got an excellent support bill. We've got Mum Jeans and Emily Barker, which I'm very, very stoked about both of those. But I guess the way I would put it is this, like, for me, a good show is a compact between performer and audience. I want my shows to be participation events. I mean, I'm not saying that every single person is like morally obliged to get involved, but my hope is that everybody will be part of the event. It's not a question of five people making noise at a room full of people. It's a question of a collective engaged in a collective activity. All of this is sounding really pretentious, I realize. And what I basically mean is, to quote you, it's a party. It's a sing along. It's a dance along. It's a good time.
Nice. Now, I saw you recently open for Counting Crows. Now, is there a different mindset when you go into a support role rather than a headlining show?
Very much so. And I mean, there's a part of me that actually loves support shows. Me and my band Sleeping Souls cut our teeth. We really became a proper touring band. We did about 2 years of opening for people in the USA where the audiences had just no idea who we were. And it was like every single night. And this was Fucking Molly, Offspring, Dropkick Murphys, Social D, bands like that. And
Wow.
you'd walk out in front of 3,000 people. And like, particularly the Social D crowd, who I love, but like they're a tough crowd. And like we'd walk out and it was just, people wouldn't even clap or stop talking or whatever. It's just some bunch of English dickheads just walked out on stage. And then there's this very clearly defined thing. You've got half an hour or 45 minutes or whatever to turn that around. And the sense of achievement is very measurable, because you go from nobody even responding when you walk onto a stage to hopefully, a massive round of applause when you leave the stage, if you've done your job correctly, or if it's gone well or whatever. So, obviously when you play a headline show, everyone's come, that people have bought tickets to see you play. So there's a sort of built-in sense of appreciation. Of course, you still want to try and exceed people's expectations and all this kind of thing. But and then I mean, to a degree, it's different from. It depends on who you're supporting. I would probably play a slightly different set opening for Megadeth than I would for Counting Crows. Not that I've opened for Megadeth yet,
Yeah.
but I mean, I would probably a tough gig. But the Counting Crows. I mean, I grew up listening to Counting Crows music, and their influence is a very important strand in what I do, but I would say on one of a few. So you lean in certain directions with the sports show. When I do a headline show, it's more, hopefully a more holistic overview of who I am and what I do. Also, the Counting Crow show, that was just me and Matt. That's a duo show. We got the full band coming over in November, and that's obviously different. There's more people. It's louder, and there's drums.
Amazing. What I did notice, though, I've seen you a number of times. I spent a lot of your set in Sydney watching the crowd because I know how powerful you are, and watching you win them over and have everyone, I heard everyone talking about you afterwards. It was just amazing to know that's what you're good at. And I'm hoping so
Well,
many of
thank you.
those come back in these shows in November.
That's the plan. I mean, you know, it's this is the thing. Like on some levels, as far as the music industry as a whole is concerned, I'm quite old fashioned, you know. And I'm just like, you go out, you play before in somebody else's audience, and you nick as many of them as you can, and then you come back and you play again, and they come along. So fingers crossed. I mean, it is entirely possible. We've had things over the years. I remember we did some long touring in the States with Jason Isbell a few years ago, which was fantastic, and I love Jason. And we played a comparatively restrained set for me, and afterwards I was chatting with people and they were like, man, that's like the craziest show I've ever seen, I'm definitely coming to see you next time. And I was like, oh fucking hell, man, this you know, and yeah, just wait, you know, there's going to be quite a lot more kind of shouting and jumping off drum kits when we do the full band show. But yeah, it's that's lovely to hear. I'm very glad that people were chatting about stuff after.
It was very good. Now, you have been here a number of times over the years. Do you have a favorite memory of Australia?
Many. I mean, I remember probably my first tour in Australia was so beautiful because I came over with Chuck Reagan for the Revival tour in 2010. I'd been touring with Chuck for a couple of years before then, and he kept banging on and on about how Australia was the promised land of touring, was what he kept saying. And I eventually said, well, put up or shut up. You know, show me. So he took me over, and he was annoyingly right. And we had a fantastic time. I told this story the other day in an interview, and I hadn't sort of thought about this for a while, and the person I told it to was so horrified that I'll repeat it to you. We played a show in Tasmania, which remains one of the wildest places I've ever been, and I mean that with all the compliment and love I can muster. But after the show, me, Chuck Reagan, Ben Nichols from Lucera, and Tim Barry from Avail. So the four of us between us probably had over 100 years of touring experience on deck. And we saw what was miles and away the craziest thing any of us had ever seen, which was a young lady at the bar sorted out a round of shots of Jameson for everybody. We all drank the shots, and then she ate the shot glass afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Like crunched the glass and swallowed it. And the four of us just looked at each other and we're just like, where are we?
Wow.
So
that's hardcore.
Yeah, that was that we and just kind of like winked and walked off. It was a bit like a Hold Steady song, do you know what I mean? But like it was quite something.
I love that. That's brilliant. Now let's talk about new music, because we had FTHC out last year. Your ninth.
Yeah.
Have you got big plans for a 10th? Anything in the works?
Yes, I mean I finished it on Thursday. So there we go. I mean, basically, you know, obviously FTHC is a record I'm fiercely proud of, but it was a record that was made in slightly odd circumstances. We recorded it quite a lot of it remotely, which was weird. I was between drummers at the time. There are three people who played drums on that album, and I've never met any of them in person. So strange times. Yeah, because, you know, Elam Rubin did the lion's share of it, and he's in LA. He's a very good drummer. He'll go far. We, you know, this time around we have Callum as my new drummer. He's going to kill everybody when he comes to Australia. He's so fucking good. And having him on the record has been a joy as well. And yeah, it's, I'm really, really proud of it. We'll probably play one or two new songs when we come down in November, but obviously this is the first full band tour since 2018, I want to say. So we have some, you know, we are also going to be playing stuff, well, from every record actually.
Excellent. I like to hear that. Now, let's look back over your career, because it can be very easy to say what can change over time. What's the one thing, though, that's always remained the same about Frank Turner?
Ooh, there's a good question. Whilst I play for time, I will say this, which is that I think it's really important for artists to change. There is a kind of an odd tendency in an audience, and I suffer from this myself with regard to other people, to sort of wish that an artist would stay kind of captured in amber at the moment that you discovered them. And I actually think that's an unfair thing to think about an artist, and ultimately it is the duty of an artist to change and develop. Now that I've got that fluster out of the way. I mean, I think that ultimately the thing that remains the same is that I remain dedicated to the song. You know, the thing I care about most is a good song. And that's always been the case. And what the specifics of what that involved at a certain point in my writing career is obviously going to change over time, not least because I'm, among other things, keen to not repeat myself. But there is this kind of platonic ideal of a great song in my head that I'm always chasing, and I can almost hear it. And in a way, that's one way of describing writing, full stop, is chasing that kind of that faint whisper of a sound in the next room that is the perfect song. But you know, that's what I care about. I care about that more than I care about politics. I care about that more than I care about anything else, really. It's just trying to write the best songs that I can. And that remains constant.
Nice. Now, speaking of songs, I always like to ask people the question, I wish I wrote it. So is there one song in the world you wish you'd written? What would that be and why?
One? Good Lord, we're going to be here all day. Okay. I'll give you two. Fuck it. I would say Yellow Bike by Pedro the Lion. Anything by Pedro the Lion. I had the fortune of playing a show with him a couple of months ago and meeting him, and I think managed to not be too much of a total fucking punisher. But like, he's basically my favorite songwriter ever. And then, I mean, goddamn, if I'd written My Baby Just Cares for Me by Nina Simone, I would be a happy man. That is a wonderful piece of music.
I could dig that. Now, you talked about producing at the start. I didn't realize you were doing that. Now, the one person I always like to ask about is one of my favorite heroes, Butch Walker, who's also a producer.
Oh, yeah.
Now, did you pick up anything from Butch along the way when he was working with you?
Yes and no. So this is one of the things about. So basically, at the start of the pandemic, I was like, I need a hobby, or else I'm going to relapse into bad behaviors, and I need to do something with my time now that I'm not allowed to tour for a while. And I started learning how to be a producer, and it was the first. I had some knowledge of how to record stuff on Logic a little bit, kind of thing, but it was really, that's when I dug into it conceptually. And two things kind of occurred to me quite quickly. One of them was that there was a ton of knowledge that I've picked up over the years, which is valuable and useful, just through the process of having been in and around studios for a very long time. And it's lovely working with younger bands and just kind of going, let's double track that guitar. And they go, huh? And you kind of go, I mean, why would we not do that? And then you suddenly realize that you've learned something that they haven't yet learned, and you're passing that knowledge along. And that's a wonderful feeling to be a conduit in that level. On the flip side of that, one of my great frustrations is that I sat in studios with some of the best producers in the world, with Rich Costy, with Butch Walker, with Alex Newport, with all these people. And whilst they were setting compressors and moving microphones around and all the things I now care about deeply, I was reading Facebook on my phone or reading a book. Do you know what I mean? Or just not really paying that much attention. And I'm so annoyed with myself now because there was so much incredible knowledge and incredible skill being kind of exemplified directly in front of me whilst I looked at this fucking thing. So I am a little bit irritated with myself about that. But, you've got to start somewhere.
Well, you can now pick up your own way of doing things. We'll do it that way.
Yeah.
So lastly, what I do with everyone is, and we've done this before, we're going to look ahead with the prediction. So I want you to finish this sentence for me. In 2024, Frank Turner will...
this is quite easy for me. Frank Turner will put out a new album and tour the fuck out of it. That's the next part of the plan, and it's the nature of my life that we tend to plan quite far in advance. So we're currently in early 2025 as far as my touring schedule goes.
Not to there yet.
So no, I know. Well, I mean, it's kind of it does, that's occasionally quite daunting. Do you know what I mean? You kind of sit there and look at it and go, Jesus Christ. But it's also exciting because A, I love what I do, and B, after doing this for my entire adult life, it was quite easy at various points to kind of flippantly say something like, maybe I'll take a year off and go and live in Paris and write a novel and all this sort of bullshit. And actually, what the lockdowns and the pandemic gave me was an example to try out taking a year off, and it turns out it was awful, and I'm never going to do it again. So I'll be on the road. I'll have a new record, and I'm very excited about it.
So thank you so much again for your time. It's always a pleasure. I wish we had like 4 hours to chat.
Me too, and that would be delightful. And if we cross paths on the tour, let's grab a beer and hang out.
Sounds good to me, mate. I'll see you then. Thanks, Frank.
Take care. All the best.
See you, mate.